Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So today I want to talk about something that I have been noticing across several brands in terms of handbags. I'm talking about the bow bag. This trend that feels very nostalgic to me, like as a millennial, when I think of mid-late, more like late 2000s. This was a motif that was used quite heavily at various houses, alongside this style that was very ultra girly, almost doll-like. There was this style that was very prevalent in the mid-late 2000s. It also crossed over to some hipster styles as well. This twee aesthetic with like polka dots and bows and ribbons. I think today though, it's got a bit of a different edge to it, but there are still some ways that we're seeing this done that totally reminds me of the late 2000s. Let's start off with Chanel because I think this is a brand where this is very much a motif the brand has used throughout the years. This is a bag from the design team, this bow bag. It's from the post Virginie Viard era, which this definitely has that post Virginie effect. Very soft, ultra girly, feminine. We've got the CC logo at the center. This style that we're seeing, it's very an aesthetic, very Virginie, and by extension very Carl. But yeah, it's literally shaped like a bow. It comes in leather, tweed, denim fabrics. It has this top handle, also this chain shoulder strap. So it's the kind of piece that fits in perfectly with that like girly, cutesy aesthetic. It's interesting because Carl definitely played with the bows. Like I think of this collection spring 2008, we got these black satin versions, and I also think there is an element to the legacy of Coco Chanel, her use of bows. I always think of masculine, feminine with the bow tie, and Coco Chanel taking inspiration from the man's tie. Next we have Marc Jacobs, and this is the bow, the sack bag. Of course, the branding literally says the sack. The handle itself forms a knotted bow. It's done in these pink and black polka dots, again, which instantly makes me think of the late 2000s. When I think about Marc Jacobs, really cutesy, girly fashion, I think it's very true to Marc's DNA, playful, almost doll-like. Again, while I'm not a fan of the branding, I understand it's supposed to be like tongue-in-cheek, and you could probably turn this bag around if maybe you're not into the branding and it does have this metal logo. But that being said, it's $250 USD, definitely a lot more accessible in price than Chanel. So Marc Jacobs is one of these brands that typically you'll find in the sale, and it also feels very Marc Jacobs. So next we have Prada. So Prada's take on this trend, it's more functional. Their mini padded re-nylon bag, it's soft, has this puffed bow effect, but done with that brand signature utilitarian twist. The nylon adds durability, yet the shape still reads that kind of like girly femininity and slightly puffy. So I think it's definitely a bag you can wear during the winter time if you want that like winter ready look. Feels quite practical but also stylish, and I think that's what Prada does so well. This bag, it retails for $2,400 USD. It's personally too steep for me. Next we've got Balenciaga. So Balenciaga's version, it feels a little bit more like dystopian and edgy. They did these recent ski collection bags. I actually talked about them, so I won't like talk about these for too long, but they featured these ribbons that tied into these bows, and these bags had shearling. Kind of an unexpected combination, but the bags had that very like Demna, worn in, distressed leather look, which contrasted against this pretty pristine ribbon. So yeah, it's very Demna. It's fashion meets destruction. Personally not my aesthetic, but I feel in a cool way we could see, like I said in the video, a member of the Kardashian family pulling it off and, you know, people loving it. So now on to Dior, where I think bows were a central part of Jonathan Anderson's debut collection for the women's wear. I did a whole in-depth review talking about the bow motif. Here we see it in the Cigale bag. This is Jonathan Anderson's it bag, I would say. It carries that same kind of folded architectural bow motif that we saw across the runway. Very structured princess energy, but because it's just got that one handle, it kind of like slants and tilts at a unique way. It has that Lady Dior elegance, but also that play on structure and proportion. Subtly references Anderson's work at Loewe, like with the folded kind of structural details of the puzzle bag. But this is now at the House of Dior. He's finding ways to make the Dior house codes work with his design language. And I definitely could see the Lady Dior customer, especially in this kind of like soft, pale pastel-y colors, very appealing for the Dior customer. And then of course there's also the Lady Dior with the bow. It's just a minor detail, but enough of a Jonathan Anderson signature to sort of say this is his era, these are his bags. Of course I also think of the Galliano era as exploring this motif quite heavily. It was very apparent to me that Galliano was in this collection with some of these like historical motifs, looking back to the 18th century, Marie Antoinette, and all of that was definitely felt with the fashion, and that's something Galliano did. But even when he did like his bow bags, it signals this chapter while still being rooted in this kind of like ladylike style that I think Dior has become known for. Next we've got Acne Studio. So this is more of an unexpected take, and this is a style that they've had for quite some time. I think it was like a really hot bag last year, the multi-pocket bag, and I think it's a style that still hits now, and it's got these bows with these utility pockets, and again I think it creates this clever tension between like utility and girly. It's an example of how you can reinterpret this trend that adds, I think, a little bit more of like an edge, a little bit more street style. Next, we've got Aquazzura. So this is a brand that I think has used this bow motif in a lot of their accessories, most notably their heels. They've extended that DNA to these matching clutches, which are a nice kind of like occasion piece, holiday parties. Two other designers that use this bow aesthetic, but not in a trendy way. I think Chanel, this is not a trend for Chanel or certain other brands, but one brand that I think really uses this as a part of their identity is Self Portrait. They have these bow bags that, especially some of these recent ones, work really well for an evening aesthetic. There's quite an assortment, and I feel like if you like the Chanel aesthetic but want like a mid-tier option, I think Self Portrait has always owned this lane in sort of that kind of like girlier aesthetic way. But yeah, they've used this bow motif. What I like about it is how dimensional it feels. It doesn't feel flattened. It does have like a gestural feel to it. It's one of these brands that I think of that has more of this quote unquote like girlier aesthetics. And I say this in quotations because I think these ideas of girly or boyish or masculine or feminine, it's very much social construct. What is this aesthetic of the time? Again, going back to Chanel wearing men's bow ties, or even the color pink. Like, this used to be a color for the boys. When I say this term, I use it in quotations in like our current social and cultural constructs. But again, this is something that changes with time, that fashion pushes against. Another brand that I think also plays with a lot of these themes and ideas is Simone Rocha. She uses bows constantly, and again, she's been doing this for so long. The bow is not a trend, it is part of her design language, but there is also this subversive side to it. It's oversized, it's imperfect, or placed unexpectedly. It also does have these bags that have quite a like utility look, but then she places a bow on them, and then they have these like quite utility straps, but then it's also embellished with pearls. And then finally, I wanted to mention this Canadian brand, A Bronze Age. I've talked about before, but they've been doing these taffeta bow bags for some time, and they have a variety of different silhouettes from the Sammy to the bento, a variety of different colors, patterns, and they're priced pretty reasonably. Like the Sammy and bento are going for 230 Canadian dollars. I think they're chic, statement making, and a way to indulge in the trend without having to go into the luxury price points. So yeah, that was my video for today, talking about this bow bag renaissance. Do you like this trend? Personally, while I don't love all of these iterations, overall, like, this vibe really reminds me of the late 2000s. Like, think of the style of someone like Lily Allen, the way she would wear Chanel, even this kind of twee hipster look. Again, bows were just very much a thing, and it's fascinating to see this come back, but we're, I think, seeing an aesthetic split. Like, some brands are going full on girly glam princess, while others are reinterpreting it in a more dystopian way, or even just like a practical way, right? Which direction do you prefer? What do you think of this trend? Are you into it, or are you into other styles that we're seeing? Please let me know down below. Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.